Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting for January 9th, 2024. I would like to remind members of the public in the gallery during the council meeting to adhere to the conduct set forth in the council procedural bylaw displayed near the entrance of council chambers. I'll call regular council meeting to order at 7 o'clock. And just for information, Councillor Schwab is joining us virtually this evening. Starting with the land acknowledgement, Blackfalds Town Council acknowledges that we are on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting ground, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. Starting with the adoption of the agendas, Council had the chance to review the agenda for tonight. And are there any additions or changes from administration?
No, Your Worship, there are no additions or changes.
Thank you from Council. See none. Can I have a motion to adopt the regular agenda? Councillor Coulter.
I move to adopt the regular agenda.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you, Councillor Schwab, and that is unanimous. And any member of council wish to exempt any item from the proposed consent agenda? Councillor Appel.
Thank you. I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay, we have no delegation this evening. We do have a public hearing. The following public hearing is held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act. Following rules of conduct will be followed during the public hearing. Presentation should be brief and to the point. The order of the presentation shall be the entry of the written submission, comments from the Planning and Development section of the Infrastructure and Property Services Division, those supporting the bylaw, those opposing the bylaw, any other person deemed to be affected by the bylaw. The public hearing purpose is to receive comments from any interested parties on the proposed bylaw. I hereby declare the public hearing related to bylaw 1290.23 open.
The purpose of bylaw 1290.23 is to amend land use bylaw 1268.22 to include recreational vehicle storage as a use in the industrial light district and industrial heavy district. Include a similar use definition and site exceptions in the public facility district to allow for health services at 5016 Waghorn Street, the former FCSS building, and health services restaurant at 5302 Broadway Avenue, Eagle Builder Center. First reading was given to bylaw 1290.23 at the November 28th, 2023 regular council meeting. Notice of this public hearing was advertised in accordance with 606 of the Municipal Government Act and the Public Notification Bylaw on the bulletin board in the Town Civic Center upstairs outside of the council chambers. A hard copy of the proposed bylaw 1290.23 was available for viewing at the Town Civic Center front counter upstairs. The December edition of Talk of the Town on the Planning and Development webpage of the town's website commencing December 5th, 2023. Via email to local authorities and agencies on December 7th, 2023. All owners of land that is designated industrial light district and industrial heavy district were notified via letters mailed out on December 8th, 2023. Landowners adjacent to 5016 Waghorn Street, former FCSS building, and 5302 Broadway Avenue, Eco Builder Center, were notified via letters mailed out on December 8th, 2023, via email to the Municipal Planning Commission on December 14th, 2023, in the December 28th, 2023, and January 4th, 2024 editions of the Lacombe Express, and on the town's social media channels in the weeks leading up to the public hearing. The following written comments have been received to date: December 11th, 2023, submission from Alberta Transportation, and December 15th, 2023, submission from Lacombe County.
Thank you. Are there any written submissions related to the bylaw?
No, there are not.
Any comments from the planning and development section? Thank you. Is there anyone who supports the bylaw and wishes to speak? Is there anyone who opposes the bylaw and wishes to speak? Sir, approach the mic. Identify yourself. Thank you.
There we go.
Oh, yes.
My name is Corey Tortlib. I run the concessions for the town of Blackfalds and all facilities. And I'm back again regarding only a portion of this amendment. I do agree with parts of it as far as the FCSS building usage, changing that to medical use for doctors' offices. I think that's a great idea. The part that I do not agree with is rezoning the EPC for restaurants. And there's a few reasons for that. One of them being, of course, it'd have a negative impact on the existing concessions that are there, and the employment of youth. We have a lot of youth that we do employ there. So, if we had a restaurant in that facility, saying one could go where they're proposing it, it would definitely have negative impact on the numbers for the business and probably make it not viable any longer. The proposed areas where they're saying they would put a restaurant is the existing lease spaces, but the lease spaces that are there, I feel, aren't big enough. The biggest one that's there is directly below the concession, and I think it's probably even smaller than what the concession is. And we know that the concession is kind of inadequate for a full house of the Eagle Builder Center as it stands right now. So to put a restaurant in there, I don't know where you'd put a kitchen and seating. And just not only that, the logistics of running a HVAC system for the equipment, you can't go up because the concession is there. Can't go out because you got a library and arena too. So there's a lot of logistical issues with claiming that would be a proposed location for the restaurant. So I kind of feel that there might be something else maybe planned, because I don't see where you go. I've talked to a lot of people that have come through the building for the first time, and regular people that come in there quite often, and they have no idea where you put a restaurant. So there's quite a few of us that feel that there just isn't a location that's suitable for that. That would be probably the biggest one, is where it hasn't been answered for me. If I'm definitely open to hearing suggestions. I would have liked to maybe been approached on this. I found out about this from Facebook. So if there was a proposal that was going to affect the existing food services there, it would have been nice to have a heads up instead of just on Facebook. So the other issue would be too, if you do put a restaurant in one of those lease spaces, if it would fit, which in my opinion it won't. You have free flow traffic between Arena 1 and 2 currently, unless there's a junior game, and then they fence that off. And in order to get into Arena 1, you have to come through the front doors and to the ticket booth. So if you have a restaurant in there, how are we going to control people from going into the restaurant that may want to sneak up into the game? there's a lot of questions that have popped up with a proposal for a restaurant for me. What else do we got for you? Some of the wording that was used in November was the anticipation of a potential restaurant. So that kind of tells me that there may have been, somebody may have mentioned they would be interested in doing a restaurant there. Because that's generally what the anticipation would indicate to me. And the reason I kind of have a once bitten, twice shy, and the reason I'm here today is I've seen presentation to council before that has been presented as one thing, and once it is approved, it becomes something totally different. And I'm not going to get into any details. Like I said, if anybody wants to ask me any questions, you're more than welcome to get a hold of me. But I do have some examples of that, which I'm not going to get into today just for privacy reasons. Another thing too, when that place was first built, I remember being told that there was about $100,000 in taxpayer equipment that was put into that building for the kitchen. So I don't understand why you'd want to negate that expenditure to put in more food options. I would put 4 food options in that facility. And honestly, a restaurant, like I said, would have some negative impacts on the bottom line of my operations and probably end up being not feasible to me anymore. And then I'd probably end up pulling out. So to spend that kind of money to put in a concession and then negate it with an overabundance of food options just does not make sense when you've got taxpayer dollars in use there. I know that some of the concerns for the food was some of the wait times for the junior games, and I've addressed that to date. Anybody that's been to a game recently has probably noticed quite an expansion on what I'm doing for a satellite station, which I had said in May when I was here as a delegation that I would do, and I've done that. There's enough equipment in there now to do probably a 3rd satellite station to try and alleviate the lineups, because the New Year's Eve game was quite busy there, and everybody was a little shocked at how many people showed up for that, and I think we were all caught kind of standing still. So I don't want to see that happen again. So that very next week I had picked up a bunch more equipment. I've expanded it, like I said, more hot food, hot drinks, just trying to alleviate the lineup at the main concession and the other satellite stations. So if I have to have a 3rd one just to spread the people out, to make everybody's experience a little more enjoyable. I've also had a tour with Rick in the spring to looking at another solution potentially in the northwest corner, I believe, of the arena, at another possible location for a more permanent satellite area. And we had gone in the back and took pictures and explained what I kind of would picture that could go in there. And I was told that it would have to wait till budget time for this next year. So I'm kind of curious if that was brought forward or not, because that is another example that could help with the lineups for the capacity crowds. So, but yeah, there's a lot more I could say. I'm kind of going to leave it at that. Should be working right now, but I'm here to kind of defend the food service for the second time this year. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys at this time.
Thank you, Corey. Anyone
You
have
betcha.
questions at this time? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who opposes the bylaw and wishes to speak? Is there anyone deemed to be affected by the bylaw and wishes to speak? Are there any further comments from planning and development? Thank you. Do the councilors have any further questions? Councilor Sands?
I do just have one, and it is related to the same amendment. It's like I was not in favor of it to begin with, Amendment 2.5. And so I'm wondering at what point could I make an amendment to strike that from these amendments?
Administration, I think at any point, the CEO,
The next item, as it comes forward for readings, that's when you would address it at that time.
thank you. So maybe just since this is our opportunity to ask questions that were related to that, just from administration, if we can just get clarification, because I know we had some discussion about this and it's been a few weeks. And I know there was no specific indication that there was an interested party in opening a restaurant, but my question would be if Corey, for example, wanted to have any type of seating for his concession at this point, would that be allowed as the bylaw stands currently, or would it have to be subject to this amendment?
Thank you, Mayor Hoover. It really comes down to what the definition of restaurant is. Bear with me. Yes, if it would become a food service where there is sit-down option, potentially alcohol sales and that sort of stuff, that would fall under the restaurant category. So there would have to be an application for a restaurant use.
Okay, thank you. So just to summarize that, so as it stands right now, concessions stand up or seating in the stands, but at any point, any seating, a table even beside the concession would not be allowable. So this is something that could potentially benefit the current services in the Eagle Builders Center.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if no one has any other questions further, I hereby declare the public hearing related to bylaw 1290.23 to be closed, and we'll accept a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Councillor Sands,
I'll move to adjourn the public hearing.
thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? Thank you so much. Moving on to business items. Item 6.1, request for decision on bylaw 1290.23, the land use bylaw use amendments, second and third reading.
Thank you, Mayor Hoover, members of council. The land use bylaw amendments that were just subject to the public hearing pertain specifically to uses. Establishing proper uses in the land use bylaw is paramount because uses cannot be varied by the development authority nor appeal bodies. If a use is contemplated in the land use bylaw, but it is not subsequently reflected into a certain district, it is seen as a deliberate exclusion from that district and will therefore not be allowed without first going through a land use bylaw amendment. The amendments proposed under bylaw 1290.23 are coming forward to assist with the implementation of the municipal facility office space policy pertaining to the former FCSS building and in anticipation of some additional complementary uses at the Eagle Builders Center. As use amendments were required, the Planning and Development Department took the opportunity to address a misuse that wasn't listed in the industrial districts, being recreation vehicle storage, and included a definition for similar use. Council gave first reading to bylaw 1290.23 at their October 28th, 2023 meeting and set the public hearing for this evening. In the discussion part of your report, each of these amendment numbers correspond with the amending bylaw before you, and I'll just speak to each of the amendments. Amendment 2.1 relates to because of the prescriptive nature of land use bylaws, many municipalities, including the town of Blackfalds, will have a similar use provision in certain districts. We have that in our commercial and industrial districts. This allows some flexibility when contemplating a development permit application for a use that may not have been considered when we were originally writing the land use bylaw, but is similar enough to other uses that it would be an appropriate use. The town's land use bylaw has similar use provisions as I previously mentioned. However, the development authority needs to be very careful when they use that provision. As such, the amending bylaw includes a definition of similar use to ensure proper application of the provision where allowed. Amendments 2.2 and 2.3 When reviewing a development inquiry about a potential RV storage, it was realized that our land use bylaw has a definition for recreational vehicle storage. However, it is not reflected as a use in any of the land use districts. Unfortunately, because we have that as a defined use, it is not possible to consider an application for such development as a similar use. So, yeah, that wouldn't be applicable in that situation. So we're proposing to reintroduce recreational vehicle storage into land use districts that it was historically allowed in, that being the industrial light and industrial heavy districts. Amendment 2.4. This amendment proposes to bring health services as a permitted use in the public facility district, but only at the former FCSS building. This is to assist with the implementation of the municipal facility office space policy that was provided in attachment 2 of your report, and the Eagle Builder Center to allow for potential physiotherapy or other related uses. Amendment 2.5. This amendment proposes to bring restaurant as a discretionary use in the public facility district, but only at the Eagle Builder Center. The existing concessions are considered accessory uses at the Eagle Builder Center, but to allow for potential sit-down restaurant, this amendment is necessary. In terms of pre-council consultation, in the spirit of and intent of the public participation policy, all industrial landowners were provided with a notification of administration's intent to bring forward to include recreational vehicle storage as a discretionary use. That was prior to taking this to first reading, and at that time we received 2 inquiries. When I wrote the report, it was 2 inquiries. We've since received several more, and it was just looking for clarification. There was no objections to that particular amendment raised in those conversations. So the administrative recommendations before you, that council, upon closing public hearing for Bylaw 1290-23, gives second reading to Bylaw 1290-23 for the use amendments. And secondly, that council, upon giving second reading to Bylaw 1290-23, gives third and final reading to Bylaw 1290-23 use amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions before we consider motion? Councillor Stendy.
Just because we did have somebody speak to it and ask a question, which we were not able to answer at the time. Is there a proposed sit-down restaurant currently in the works for the EBC? And if so, what space is being considered for that?
Through the mayor, Planning and Development Department has received no inquiries about that. This was purely what use could possibly go in there.
That's correct. Thank you.
Further to that, so looking at the other amendments to the land use bylaw, with the exception of this one, did those other 2 have cause for it? So other requests that led those amendments, for example, the RV storage, has there been inquiries about having RV storage on those in those zones and that's facilitated? So essentially, with the exception of the food or the sit-down restaurant in the Eagle Builder Center, the other amendments are because of specific requests or uses that are being considered.
Sure. Through Mayor Hoover. Yeah, we did have a landowner in the industrial district inquire about doing RV storage. And then when we were having a meeting with them, that's when we realized that it was a use that was inadvertently missed in both the light industrial and heavy industrial. No application has been submitted to date. I'm not certain they're going to be going forward to it, but we did recognize that was not a deliberate miss. But that did spark the amendment request.
Okay. And so maybe some clarification from planning and development, what, other than just, very generalized potential uses, was there any specific reason why the amendment 2.5 is being proposed?
We keep track of various land use bylaw amendments, and what we try to do is package them into related themes to bring forward for amending bylaws. So we already knew that we wanted to amend the land use bylaw to reintroduce that RV storage use, because again, that was just a simple miss. We wanted to bring in that similar use definition as well. And then there's also some uses that may be occurring in the FCSS building that do require an amendment for them to go ahead. So because we were doing those amendments anyways, administratively, we just discussed if there was any other amendments that people knew about. And that's where the restaurant conversation came up as a possibility in the future.
Thank you. Other questions before we consider motion? Councillor Coulter.
Thank you. Yeah, like I have a problem with the 2.5 in regards to, like, I understand that even if there's tables put out there, it's classified as a restaurant. I don't quite understand that part of it, but I just don't think even with tables being out in the walkway, let alone having a space for a sit-down restaurant, there isn't really space for that. I don't see myself. So I'm not sure if that's a clarification that actually needs to happen at this point in time.
Thank you. And we'll have a chance to debate it once there's a motion, if in fact there's a motion that includes that amendment. At this point, we're just trying to get information further. Any other questions before we consider any amendments or the motions as they're presented? Make sure I'm noticing if Councillor Schwab, any questions from you? She's good?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll bring us to the point, Councillor Sands, that you were looking for to potentially look at changes.
Yeah, thank you. So I just, my reasoning behind this was just simply more on the town side of things. It's I don't feel that Blackfalds really has a population base to support a sit-down restaurant in a facility that was designed basically for recreation, arts, culture, that type of thing. That's what the destination of this facility is for. And I know, when planning for restaurants, sit-down restaurant in a facility like this, we know that the landlord is gonna be in negotiations with a business owner regarding tenant improvements, and we know how expensive those can be, especially for a sit-down restaurant and kitchen equipment. I don't feel that is a wise investment.
So just point of order, Councillor. So certainly we can accept this as debate. Were you making a motion opposing this?
I'm going to make a motion.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to finish.
Sure, thanks.
If that's okay.
Yeah, fine. I would just say we'd have a motion on the table, and this would be the debate as to the motion that you're proposing, so we can understand what it is that.
Okay,
that you're concerned.
I will actually make the motion right now then, and then we can.
Thank you, and then I'll give you whatever opportunity you want to finish your thoughts. Sir.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move that council direct administration to strike amendment 2.5 from these amendments to the land use bylaw, while keeping amendments 2.2 and 2.3 and 2.4 for the land use bylaw amendments.
Thank you. And just for clarification, will we be considering this second reading with striking that section? Would that be the most appropriate way to read this motion? Sounds like we're leaning towards referring this back to administration to amend this bylaw. Okay, so I will open this up then for debate. And so since Councillor Sands, you were already presenting your reasons why you're opposed to this.
Yeah. So yeah, I pretty much mentioned all of them. But like I said, I don't feel that this is a wise investment for the Eagle Builder Center. When we look at a place like Rogers, it has a population base that brings in people constantly throughout the week that may attract that type of thing to the facility. For now, I think based on what, our facility is designed for, and the destination for the people that are going to it, I feel that our accessory leaseholders are more than enough for that. And I think that the town should really think about, not really opening up the opportunity to allow for something like that when, God forbid, chances are a sit-down restaurant in a facility like that is not gonna succeed. That's my own opinion. But at the same time, the stress that it puts on other businesses as well, to have a sit-down restaurant in that facility when we have restaurants all over town. We want people to see this town. We want people to be out and about. And that's basically my reasoning for not wanting to allow that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other debate? Councillor Pell.
Thank you. So I'm in favor of Councillor Sand's motion to strike Amendment 2.5. I agree. I'm not convinced that this amendment is really in the best interest of our citizens at this point in time, provided it does not affect our current food vendors. And we've been told that it wouldn't affect food vendors at trade shows, markets, or outdoor vehicles for outdoor markets. So I don't believe it's necessary at this time. I realize it's more work for administration if they all come back individually. But I think we've discussed this enough, but so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Any other debate? Deputy Mayor Dennis.
I agree with the comments that have been made here, scrapping 2.5.
Thank you. And I know, I think I understand the perspective from planning and development. This actually a little bit of discussion that we had last night at Economic Development Committee is just the town is always looking at ways to remove obstacles for future development when there's obstacles that maybe don't need to be there. I think we all were a little bit curious whether or not there was a need for this, seeing as there was no, specific interest in this. And but I think initially I was okay with it because it was discretionary, and it doesn't mean it. And because of that, it wouldn't automatically happen. And it would also, if I understand this right, it would probably come to MPC if this was somebody wanted to open this at the very least. And then anybody that had an objection to this. And I think part of the reason why I was okay with it, because I wasn't sure if the current food vendors in Eagle Builder Center would maybe want to expand and put some seating in there. So I thought that would be one of the reasons why this would be one less obstacle for them to do that. But I'm not opposed to Councillor Sands striking this as well, because we don't have a specific request for that. I think the only thing that adds in the future is the cost to somebody. If they want to add a sit down, or the vendors that are in there now want to add a sit down, it then adds about a $1,500 cost, if I remember right, if they want to make an amendment to the bylaw. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to removing it since there's no specific request for it, but I do understand why we were trying to do it, just trying to remove an obstacle for future use potentially. But if there's no specific reason for it at this point, and there is objection to it, I'm not opposed to removing it. I do see Councillor Stende is also.
So not debate, a question through the chair to administration, if allowable at this time. So we do have a motion on the floor, but what I'm hearing kind of from this corner is that administration would prefer that we have a motion to send this back to administration. Is that what I'm hearing? If so, would you like us to amend the motion on the floor, or would you prefer that the motion be maybe removed?
We are just looking up in our procedural bylaw just to make sure.
Thank you. Yeah, good question. I know that the recommendation is to go to second and third reading. Obviously, that's not the motion. It's to go to second and third reading. So. Any other comments?
So we've just looked at the procedural bylaw, and we could proceed to adopt the bylaw with the amendments or put it forward for consideration. So what you could do is that council proceed with second reading with the removal of, what's it, section amendment 2.5.
Thank you. That's how I understood the motion. All right. So any other debate or discussion on the motion as it was just stated? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor? And that is unanimous. So then we're seeking a third reading, similar to second reading. Councillor Stenday.
I'll move that council, upon giving second reading to bylaw 1290.23, give third and final reading to bylaw 1290.23, land use bylaw use amendments.
And as
Do I need to though? In the second reading already amended it? Okay, as amended.
thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Debate or discussion on that motion? Call the question. All in favor? And I see that is unanimous. Carried.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. 6.2, request for decision on bylaw 1297.24, the Schedule B to the 2024 water and wastewater rates. Director Waring.
Thank you, Worship Council. So every year at budget time, we look at the water and wastewater rates. So this bylaw presented tonight is to amend Schedule B of the utility bylaw 125020. So council and administration discussed the 2024 utility rates during budget deliberations in the last quarter of 2023. And as such, we're bringing forward 2024 operating budget increases to the residential and commercial water and sewer utility rates for 2024. Bylaw 129724 amends Schedule B of utility bylaw 125023. The proposed water and wastewater rates, yearly increases across all utility counts, provide additional revenue to cover CPI, cost of treatment, maintenance, and commission rates. The proposed increase equates to an average of 3.75 increase per month, or $8.44 for a family of four, which is our typical household. There is also some additional information under the utility analysis tab on page 2 and 3 of the updated 2024 budget binder, and it's also attached to this memo. It was of note that through the review of the water rates that we did not have any sort of rider for our wastewater rates when we deal with bulk water sales. So with this revision, we're looking at changing our bulk water sales to include a rider for wastewater rates as well as water in the amount of $6.29 for every cubic meter. The previous rate applied to water and not wastewater, and the minimum charge of $150 would still remain. It is of note too that the revision allows for less disparity between the bulk water sales and the utility account charges. So when you've got a utility account hooked up, you're paying for water and then you're also paying for wastewater. Whereas previously, if you had bulk water sales, which we only limit to contractors doing capital projects or other things like that, they would only be paying for water. And so there was a resident that highlighted that for us. So we've since increased that to be a little bit more in alignment with our utility rates. So with that, there's no financial implication if we maintain the water and wastewater rates with an increase for 2024. And we're asking for council to give first reading to bylaw 129724, Schedule B, to amend those water and wastewater rates, being the amendment of Schedule B, bylaw 125020. With that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you. Questions for administration? Councillor Pell.
Thank you. Through the chair. Not a question, but just a comment, because throughout the document, sometimes it's referred to as bylaw 1250.20, but it should be, I believe, 1250.23, as it is stated in one of the places, because it was last year's utility rate bylaw. Yeah, the first paragraph under discussion lists it as 1250.23.
Through the chair to Councillor Appel, that was last year's amending bylaw that amended Schedule B of the original bylaw 1250.20. So we'll be rescinding the 23 bylaw
Okay.
and replacing it with the 1297.24 Schedule B.
Right. So just so when the resolution's read, though, are we amending Schedule B of bylaw 1250.20 or 1250.23?
It would be Schedule B of bylaw 1250.20 of the original bylaw and repealing the 23 bylaw.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. There were no other questions. I'll accept the motion. Councillor Coulter.
I move that council give first reading to bylaw 1297.24, Schedule B 2024 water waste rates and bylaw amendment Schedule B of bylaw, excuse me, 1250.20.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you. And that brings us to 6.3, or sorry, 6.4, request for decision. Or next, we have to rescind, correct? Sorry, let me get to that again. I scrolled too fast down. Okay, so we'll need the motion then to repeal.
Mayor Hoover,
Yes.
upon giving
not sure what
third
you're on.
reading to the bylaw, it will repeal.
Okay. Well, I'm seeing only the one administrative recommendation here, so we're going to give second and third.
We're just giving.
Your worship,
Thank
if I
you.
may,
Yes.
we plan on bringing second and third reading to the next council meeting.
Okay. So I just heard grumblings when I went trying to move on to the next business item. So I felt like there was something I was missing, which is not uncommon. Let me make sure that I'm covering everything that you're asking me here. Councillor Pell?
Thank you. Sorry, Kay, I found where the typo is. Sorry. So in the first paragraph under discussion where it says it's amending 1250.23, that should then be 1277.23. I was just confused because the bylaws have the same first four numbers, which doesn't happen, I thought. So that's why I was confused. So just when it comes back for second and third. Right? Because we can't have, yeah, okay.
Okay, we're good. Thank you. Moving on to 6.4, request for decision, the province regarding the province's drought management letter.
Sorry, Your Worship, we actually are at 6.3, not 6.4.
Oh, sorry, okay, that's where I skipped over. 6.3, request for decision on bylaw 129824, Schedule A of the 2024 solid waste rates. Sorry, I lost track of where it was. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Now
Director
I'm
Warren.
just trying to find the bylaw because I scrolled past it as well. Okay,
Page
sorry about
73.
that delay. So similarly to the water and wastewater rates, the solid waste management bylaw 116713 was approved by council in 2023, with the 2022 rates updated in early 2022 to align with the 2022 budget. Schedule A is amended yearly in alignment with the operational budget for solid waste and recycling to set the rates each year. In 2023, solid waste rates were not increased and were held at the 2022 rate. So moving into 2024, we discussed the solid waste and recycling rates in the 2024 budget discussions in the last quarter of 2023. Directions from these meetings in relation to utility rates for 2024 are included in the budget binders, as well as the utility rate analysis was included in this package as well. So bylaw 1298-24 amends Schedule A of the solid waste management bylaw. The proposed solid waste rate yearly increases would be increased across all the utility accounts, providing additional revenue to cover educational programming, CPI, cost of recycling, and solid waste operations, as well as operations and maintenance of the transfer station. This proposed increase equates to about 5% increase per month, or $1.48 per residential unit dwelling, based off a monthly charge. It is of note that with the EPR program, we anticipate substantial savings on the residential recycling process and hauling within town, but those savings will not be realized until the second quarter of 2025. So for right now, we're looking at increasing those rates, but future discussions, we'd want to consider either service level improvements with those additional monies, or other improvements outlined in a future master plan that we're going to be looking towards. So that may include things like waste energy discussions, maybe tipping fees at the transfer station, or other ways to improve environmental mandates, as well as potentially a full organics program. The town is also piloting the incineration containers this year, which may have a great potential to reduce our environmental impact. So just for everybody in the gallery, those incinerator containers are essentially like a mini version of a waste energy type unit. So it's a box that sits on your kitchen top. It plugs into the wall. You put your organics in there, and then it breaks them down overnight, and then you're able to apply that to your gardens and bedding, or use it for other applications like that. So we were actually approached by a company to look at piloting that, and those incinerators will be available in the beginning of 2024. So the financial implications on increasing this solid waste and recycling revenue, there are none as long as we follow this increase proposed tonight. And then what we're asking for is that council give first reading to bylaw 1298-24, Schedule A of the 2024 amending the current solid waste rates to 2024 rates, and also amending Schedule A of bylaw 116713. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you. Questions for administration? The only one I would have is, so when we extended the solid waste contractor, the pickup, curbside pickup, that was 18 months. Does that bring us through full 2024?
It does not, Your Worship. So what we're doing is, oh, yes, it actually does, but we'll be doing a request for proposal within this year so that we have that figured out and ready for after the extension of the contract.
So then if the rates and there's only the one bid for that, if they go up dramatically, do we anticipate there would be a change to this utility rate? at that time, or does this give us some ability to carry any potential increases?
We do have a little bit of ability there, but we are limited with our returns reserves right now. So we do have a healthy reserve in that solid waste code for operating. So we could mitigate those rates if they were to spike, through that process. But we're pretty confident that there will be a substantial savings with recycling rates going with the extended producer responsibility model that the majority of municipalities are moving forward with. So we're definitely okay for the next little bit, but we want to make sure that we go through that solid waste management master plan to see where we can look at revising service levels or bringing in additional user fees and the like.
Thank you. Any other questions before we consider the motion? Seeing none, we do have the administrative recommendation. Councillor Sands. Oh, see you, Isaac.
Sorry, I just wanted to make note. Director DeBresser had just reminded me of there was some discussion around adding a charge into the bylaw for mailed out invoices on this. So if that is something that council is interested, we could add that in. I know he was thinking around $2 would be about the right amount, and we could add that in for second and third reading.
Councillor Stendy.
Just on that note, I would have to say that I'm absolutely not in favor of that, knowing that the majority of our individuals in the community who still have mailed out utility bills is because they don't have access to or don't know how to use a computer. Those being a lot of our lower income individuals and our seniors. So I think attaching a charge to that would be punitive in my opinion.
Councillor Coulter.
Thank you, Councillor Sandy, because I had the same comment in regards to myself personally. I still get mine mailed out, and I have never ever been given an option to get it emailed. So it would have to be get an option out there for everybody to have a decision on making it mailed or emailed. Thank you.
Yeah, I would encourage us having a campaign to try and encourage more people to electronically receive their bills. Maybe we'll talk about this a little more next year. Be my perspective. Councillor Sands, you think you were ready to make that motion? Unless anyone has comments before. Seeing none, go ahead.
I'm prepared to move that council give first reading to bylaw 1298.24, Schedule A, 2024 solid waste rates. A bylaw to amend Schedule A of bylaw 1161/13.
Thank you.
Just a
Director
small
Wern.
clarification. You listed the resolution as bylaw 1161/13. You want to do 1167/13.
Sorry, I did what?
You listed the bylaw as 1161/13 instead of 1167/13.
Oh, did I?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. My apologies. I will, can I read that again?
Yes, please.
I'll move that council give first reading to bylaw 1298.24, Schedule A, 2024 solid waste rates, a bylaw to amend Schedule A of bylaw 1167/13.
Thank you. Debate or discussion on that motion? All in favor? And that's unanimous. And this is the one I was looking at last time when I scrolled past. So that does bring us to 6.4, the request for decision on the request from the province regarding drought management.
Thank you. So the province is currently sitting at stage 4 of its five-stage water management plan and monitoring the situation carefully in the event that the province faces similar drought conditions to last year or worse. An initial draft of the 2024 Drought Emergency Management Plan is in progress, and the Drought Command Team is ready to respond if required. The province has taken additional steps that are outlined in the attached letter and requests actions from municipalities to assist with the challenge. The town of Blackfalds is a member of the North Red Deer River Water Services Commission, who have begun to undertake efforts related to drought management. Administration would like to take the opportunity to update council on those efforts and areas identified by Minister Schultz in the attached letter. And we would like to do this at the Standing Committee of Council on March 18th, 2024.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Sands? Your mic is on.
Sorry,
No.
I just didn't check it out.
Any other questions? So we do have administrative recommendation to bring this back to Standing Committee March 18th. Someone willing to make that? Councillor Stende.
So I'm prepared to move that council direct administration to bring forward a report to the March 18th, 2024 Standing Committee of Council on the drought management efforts that have been undertaken in relation to the items outlined in the letter from the Minister of Environment and Protected Areas.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? So I appreciate that you just briefly had a discussion with CEO Isaac when this letter came. This is no surprise. I think that we're seeing drought concerns coming from a lot of different sources. And if you would have, council would have noted that in the consent agenda, there is the workshop coming up on the 26th with for drought work. And I would assume that workshop or that series of workshop is going to give some more information to our administration in order to assist us to come up with drought management plan. And it's not something, we don't individually control how much water is out there. It shouldn't be an individual municipality making that. So I think that this is kind of a collective thing. So we'll have a little bit more of an opportunity to discuss this in March if this resolution passes. So I'm definitely in favor of sitting down and having more, and I encourage everybody that is available to come to that workshop. So any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. We have no notices of motion, and that is this brings us to the conclusion of the open meeting. So I would call recess, and we'll come back in camera. We'll recess for Councillor Coulter before we go.
No, I was going to motion for recess.
Oh, I don't need a motion per se. I can call the recess for 5 minutes. So 5 minutes at 7:57. Thank you.